Wednesday. You know what that means. Time for the Southern California Writers Association Hump Day Bookstore. Host Maddie Margarita here with Diana Pardee on Tech. Every Wednesday morning at 10 a.m., SCWA turns our Facebook page over to a new author to talk about their books and their writing. This morning, we are pleased to have with us Casey Dorman. Casey is a former university professor, dean, a psychologist, a literary review editor, an essayist, and the author of 14 novels, a collection of short stories and poems, and 3 nonfiction books, including a volume in the Johns Hopkins series on neuroscience and psychiatry. His fiction, essays, and poems have appeared in several anthologies and magazines. He's also published academic and research novels in psychology, medical, public health, and philosophy journals. He's a member of the Society of Philosophers in America. His most recent novel is the sci-fi thriller Ezekiel's Brain, published in 2021. So good morning, Casey.
Good morning. Great to be here.
I love introducing people who make me feel like a slacker. Okay, so I'm reading all of this. Are you writing all the time? Do you write 24 hours a day or waking hours?
But I do write daily. It is a rare day that I don't do some writing. You feel like a slacker. When I hear that list, the word that I use is hack. For me, I write whether it comes out well or not, and sometimes I publish it whether it came out well or not.
Yeah, that's not true. You have that internal editor going all the time, I'm sure.
Yeah. So so I do write almost every day. The exceptions are when I'm really reading, when I'm on a vacation sometimes, or if I'm really reading a good book that I don't want to interrupt the only thing I like to do better than writing is reading. So
it's so great. You write in so many different forms. You write long form, short form poetry. But let's talk about the long form stuff first. Let's talk about your most recent novel. Let's talk about Ezekiel's Brain.
Okay,
and I talk a little bit about that.
I just happen to have a copy of it here.
Ezekiel's
Brain, and it's published by NewLink Publisher, which is a sci-fi fantasy imprint of Mystic Publishers, which also has the imprint Ink and Quill, which is a little more better known than their NewLink imprint. And I specifically sought out a science fiction publisher because I wanted to do something, and they like series. So this is the first in a series of books. It's a book about artificial intelligence, and or at least that's the essential part of the plot. Ezekiel is a man who copies his own brain. He's a neurologist, neuroscientist, and computer scientist, professor at MIT. He copies his own brain and puts it into a computer. So there's this computer brain has all of his memories, thinks it's him, and is essentially a twin. Later, Ezekiel dies, and this computer beyond that, because part of the plot is that the whole human race gets wiped out by another artificial intelligence, and a whole population of artificial intelligences with humanoid type bodies populate the solar system and start doing space travel. They have a space war. They bring Ezekiel back from, he was invented, this is 200 years later. They unearth him where he is, and he joins them, and I won't go further into the story, but that's the beginning of a kind of more futuristic than Star Trek type of series, which follows a crew of artificial intelligence robots as they search for life in the difference between being human and being a machine. And we have Ezekiel, who is essentially a Yeah, I was,
unique?
my training is in psychology. So I have a doctorate in psychology from decades ago. And my specialty within psychology was neuropsychology, which is brain behavior relationships. And I was particularly interested in brain injury and learning in children. So that was my book by published by in the neuroscience series by John Hopkins. It was Cognitive Effects of Early Brain Injury. And I taught cognitive science and neuroscience at the university. So I've always been interested in the brain. I've always been interested. Cognitive science has merged brain neuroscience into artificial intelligence, the field of artificial intelligence. So I've followed along, even though I'm not a computer kind of person. And I've been a fan of Philip K. Dick, whose kind of classic book, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, which became the film Blade Runner, has this dilemma where you have androids, you have artificial intelligences who don't know that necessarily that they are artificial intelligences. You have a human in that book who starts to suspect that he may be an artificial intelligence. So the line between humans and artificial intelligence is very blurred. And that was the theme of my book, I, Carlos, which was one of the first novels I published back in 2004. This is it. And I've gone back to that theme now of the difference between human and artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence is a scary concept overall. And I hope Elon Musk takes hold of your book and I was reading, I think it was Elon Musk that said, maybe it's already too late to control artificial intelligence.
There are people who think that, yes. I was very strongly influenced by a book called Superintelligence by Nick Bostrom, who's a I think Oxford professor, and where he really talks about, he kind of warns of the dangers of developing artificial intelligence, that you would have difficulty controlling it. And that's what happens in Ezekiel's brain, that the artificial, and a different artificial intelligence, not Ezekiel, is given to make it safe, they tell it has to uphold all of the moral values that the highest moral values of humanity. And it goes through this whole teaching thing to learn what those are. And its first decision is that the greatest threat to humanity's moral values are human beings themselves. So in order for those moral values to be upheld, it has to wipe out all human beings and then populate the world with artificial intelligences who can behave morally.
Such an interesting premise. And, when I watch like Musk's Neuralink, his
yes, right.
Yeah, his ventures into those kinds of things, it scares the living heck out of me. So yay, I'll be reading that book and it'll be keeping me up at night. But I think that's probably one of the things that makes your writing unique, is that it is thought-provoking, and it is, whether you intend to or not, geared to keeping people awake at night, whether you're writing about this or the Oedipus murders,
right,
keeping people up at night. So is that what people can expect when they pick up a Casey Dorman book?
I hope so. I hope so. That you mentioned the Oedipus murders, and it was, I've got a copy of it here also. And it was published by a different publisher, but it is one where the main character, who's a psychoanalyst, there's a murder involved, and he has amnesia states that he doesn't know whether he could be the murderer, and the reader doesn't know whether his patient is the murderer or he is. I will bring up, this is an appropriate time to bring it up. I've written a couple other short stories that are like this, that are kind of end up with an ominous feeling at the end that something bad is going to happen. And they've been published in, I belong to the Lake Forest Writers Roundtable, which is an Orange County writers subgroup. And we put out a anthology last year. It's called The Truth That Can't Be Told. Last year was volume 1, and on June 21st of volume 2 is coming out. And it's got a couple of my stories. Each one has some of these science fiction-ish stories in it. One about robots, one about, it's called, I think, Our Man on Mars, sort of a takeoff on Our Man in Havana by Graham Greene.
That sounds, really great. And I love anthologies because they're short bites that you don't have to commit. If you have a limited amount of time, it's great to have an anthology with you that you can sit down and get through a story and a complete story in a short period of time. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea. I love both of them. But I have a question for you. So
Sure.
as a writer and a thinker, when you're writing, how do you keep from going so deep that you find yourself in the weeds? I mean, those are deep. Some of the things that you explore are deep topics. How do you discipline yourself?
Not well, first of all. And so I have a tendency to do that. I have a tendency to do that when I talk. So you'll have to catch me if I start to do that. So usually I have to edit those things back out because I have gone too far into the weeds on some of the topics that I find interesting, but no one else would. And sometimes I don't even know what I was trying to say when I get to the end of it. So I edit them out. And the nice thing about having someone else publish my book is that, for example, with Ezekiel's Brain, after I thought I had edited out all of the weeds, the editor for the publisher found that there was still a swamp I had not addressed.
Pesky remainders there.
Yes, and so they got everything got shortened. So now we had 1 paragraph long discussions instead of 3-page long discussions. So
what do you hope that people feel when they finish reading your books? I mean,
I'm hoping they want to read more about what I've written about. Hopefully they want to read more that I've written about it. But that it's got them interested, excited, and the characters stick with them. That one of the things that I found, and probably every writer knows, is that regardless of the stories, it's the characters and how well they're developed that make it work or don't work. And so with science fiction, that's hard. Science fiction kind of has a reputation of underdeveloping characters for the sake of an intriguing plot. And I have a tendency to do that. And so the other thing I do when I go back and edit is really try to amplify the personal side of my characters, which is a little hard when they're robots, but I want people to remember those characters, because I remember some of the characters. Sometimes I don't remember the plots of a book, but I remember the character in the book. And I think, like, when you see a movie, and someone is playing the character in the book you read, it's kind of how well they can be that character determines whether you like the movie or not. So
how close they come to the movie that you had in your head.
The one you had in your head, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Well, I think that's a great place to kind of stop. I would love to talk to you more about some of the things that you write. Hopefully you'll come back.
I would love to.
It's really fascinating and scary stuff. So yeah, maybe we can pursue that a little bit more. But where can people find your books, Casey?
They are all on Amazon. So if you go to Casey Dorman on Amazon, you'll find a whole list of them on my author page. And then I have a website, www.caseydorman.com. So that's easy to
Very
remember.
tricky.
Yeah. And it lists all of my books, even a few other people's books, because in the past I was also ran a small press and I published 6 or 7 books by other people. But they're all of my books are on my website also.
Great. And we will put links to your website and your book also in the show notes.
That would
So
be great.
people will have those. Well,
Yeah.
thank you very much for your time. Best of luck. And we didn't get a chance to really touch too much on your next project, but when that's done, I hope you'll come back.
I will. Thank you for the invitation. Love to be here.
Anytime. Okay, well, thank you very much, Casey Dorman. Thank you all for being with us this morning. If you enjoyed this morning's conversation, please feel free to share it. If you didn't, please don't tell Casey or I. We're fragile. But no, seriously, feel free to share it, and if on Facebook, or you can go to SCWA Writers Online, which is our YouTube channel, to show an edited version of today's interview. We hope that you'll stay safe and that you'll join us again, and we will see you soon.